See what we got going on here. All right. Well, what are we doing today? Let's get this going here. We are doing Ansible, but we're also putting together the automation course. So I'm going to be doing some labs. I'm going to be taking notes on where I think some of these things fit. So I really need to get my... Where do I have this? I think I have this here. Here, and then if I change it to this scene, I want to say it's this scene. No, it's NFS server. Let's see if we can find it. Ah, here's the automation course. Let's see if we can name this thing. That's good. That'll be at least easier for me to find it, I guess. All right. So we're going to be doing the Linux automation course out loud. I'm just going to be doing labs today, but we'll try to fit them in where I kind of think they belong according to some of this. And then I'll also probably keep my notes up, which is, these are the notes that I kind of had from the original area. So we'll be taking notes and just kind of keeping track of what we're working on and stuff. So if people want to do labs with me, it's really easy to get into Killer Coda. It's free. And we're going to do some Ansible and just kind of playing around with the tooling and the pieces of it. And then when we do the course, we're going to talk about how that fits in with, like, obviously we got to do the stuff, right? We got to be able to do the work. That's what people want, and that's what they hire you for and stuff. That's what you want to be able to do, right? If you're going to do stuff professionally. But then also a big focus of the course is like, how does this tie into doing this in an administration sense, in a DevOps type sense? Because with DevOps, you're kind of bridging that gap between, you're just a guy down doing servers like me, and you're also working with your operations or we're operations, and we're working with the dev teams to stand up their environments and give them a prod environment that looks exactly like what they had been working on in dev. And how do we make repeatable things? Because a big part of the problem with systems engineering, in fact, I have a little talk on this that will come up in that, is the problem on our operations side is producing the same exact server over and over again, producing the same work over and over again. Having to think about stuff over and over again because documentation isn't there is also annoying. But then once the documentation's there, automating it and making it something that just pops out when you push a button, that's really where we're trying to get to in our system. So let's see what we can get done here. We are using in our system. Let's look at the whole syllabus for people that haven't been here. Let's look at the whole syllabus real quick. I kind of want to clean this up because I'm handing this over to the guys. Oh, hold on. Actually, one other thing. Course objectives. Right, because I don't have anything with troubleshooting yet. Okay. Anyways, let's look at the course. So the course is Prolog 101. I don't really care the numbering, but we're just calling it 101. Linux administration, Linux automation for the enterprise. Like that, like 103. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Course description. Course addresses how to automate Linux in a corporate environment. That is the goal, right? To get you guys doing this stuff. S-Wine over on the Twitch side, we are doing labs today and working through some Linux stuff. So if you want to hang out, that's what we're doing. If anybody wants to do the stuff with me, that's kind of what I'm doing this for, is for people that need to get a little boost and maybe working on this and maybe don't feel comfortable doing it yet. So anyways, course addresses, course will follow. We'll focus on taking design, build, administrative, and corrective tasks and turning them into automated tasks. Okay. So design, build, administrative, and corrective. Okay. Um, design, build, deploy, administration. That's a verb, right? Design, build, deploy, administration, and we can say corrective tasks. That's fine. Let's see. Tasks and turning them into automated processes. Yeah, it's better. Emphasis will be on integrating during the build, run, and end-of-life phases so that CI/CD can occur and deployments as code are utilized. Yeah, we need to do all that as even though we're systems engineers, even though we're building things that are Linux boxes that are then being consumed by our dev teams and our operations teams and other things, we need to. Let me show you guys this kind of, some of this is born of this old talk I gave. So I'm going to show you guys this talk real quick. I'll just pull it up. Even though we're not doing this presentation right now, it's this is from a talk. Oh, I don't want that one. I do want that one, but I don't want it with that tool. This is a talk that I gave to my company Redline a while back, and it was Ansible automation with Tower. Right, we were specifically doing Ansible with Tower, and what we ended up doing, here was the agenda. The agenda was the central problem of systems engineering and operations. Like, what are the problems that we kind of deal with in operations as we build servers and deploy them? Like, what are the problems that we run into, right? And then how can Ansible fix that, right? How does Ansible solve that central problem, right? So we come down here. Here's two of the major problems of systems engineering. Like, building systems are building consistently repeatable servers, and some of us solve this different ways. We build a pipeline where the server comes out through like infrastructure as code or something, but once that server's set down as like a physical stateful node, changes start to happen to it. Admins get on it. People that have pseudo permissions add software. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen. And then the other one is timeliness. If you're not doing that, but you guys are following procedures and stuff, that can take a long time. And taking 3 days to build a server, that hasn't been acceptable for like the last 10 years. Maybe you get away with that with a physical box, but not even that anymore. Virtual machines should stand up like that. Like, I mean, I would call 5 minutes long nowadays to redeploy a server in a corporate environment for sure. So, and it needs to be the same server, but also consistency of build, and then also update all the changes in between there. That's its own challenge, right? So these are two of the problems of systems engineering. We've been wrestling with these the whole time I've been doing it, and these are things that matter. So how do we try to solve those? We got ITIL and DevOps methodologies, and there's all these different ways that we try to figure out how to productionalize servers and making sure that everything's defined as a menu, and we can give people exactly, like, we interact with people through a set of processes and all these different organizations, and everybody's happy. Or you got DevOps methodology where you have software life cycles and everything produces an artifact and the artifact save, and then you pull the artifact. You never pull from the work queue or the working tool. You just always pull from the artifact. So there's things like that we do, but they kind of are like stopgap fixes. They're like between here and there, trying to solve those problems I defined. So DevOps, a little more about their methodology. In dev, you're always kind of spinning and building. You should always be able to build in dev over and over again. You should be able to hit a button. You should have things that build every so many hours, every time there's a commit, any of these kind of things. You should be able to just build and test and regression test and smoke test and all these types of tests, right? In fact, I got to put, that's something. Testing methodologies for... like the types of tests that we run into. So that's going to be another course objective. Let's say utilize. Yeah, so these are all the course objectives. I got to make sure I have that down here captured because, again, this has to go out today for the guys. So that would be early. Maybe we'll put that in 14 as far as testing goes. Like a actual definition of types of tests that you might build into your methodology. But anyways, but prod is always ready. Prod is a validated, known thing that only changes when there's a few things that typically have to happen for prod to change. You have to have the system tested with all these tests. Then you have to have like typically some type of human intervention, like a electronic change board or something like that approves, and then a time slot window where you can roll out the deploy and then monitor. Right, you have to have monitoring and all that kind of stuff in place. So that's DevOps way of doing it. So then I say, so what about Ansible? What does Ansible do? And this will be part of the course here that we're coming up to. But Ansible is a configuration tool that runs agentless in an environment. It runs on port 22 by default, but you can use other ports if you want. In Windows, it uses WinRM on port 5985 and 5986 if you're using the secure version of it with certs. But calls modules that can be individually added or removed from execution. You can set up module and execution environments for Ansible. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. But one of the things that's very important is it's agentless. A lot of times when people talk about Ansible versus this, they're like Ansible versus Puppet or Chef or Salt or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but those are all agent-based services. What does that mean? I have to have an agent on those nodes. Now I've got one more thing to monitor. I've got another agent out there. It's got to be on. It's got to be running. It's got to be doing what it does. So Ansible doesn't need that. So that's a value, right? That's a thing to think about. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it or those other tools are fine tools for what they do, but you just know that this isn't the agents are never pulling. This is always a push unless you invert Ansible, which I'm actually going to show how to do in the course. I'm going to show methods that I've used to make Ansible bring servers up faster, where they run their own configurations, right? Those kind of things. In fact, I'm going to be building some of those labs here soon. But what can Ansible do by itself? Not a whole lot. You have to have some type of like orchestration, some kind of tool that does things in the environment. So how does AWX or Tower help fit? Well, team writes good code, pushes it up, and Tower or AWX can be constantly spinning in dev and running stuff if you want, right? And then it can respond out or record out what's going on, right? So this was an old again talk that I gave on this. Tower, which is now called Ansible Automation Platform. They don't really call it Tower anymore, but these are some of the things about it. And then the dashboard view. This is an old dashboard that I have of it. And then I gave a little demo. I could show you guys this demo if you want. It's super easy to do. I got to figure out, hold on. So I need in my notes, these things. Testing. I got to write notes as I go here because I'm thinking of these things and I don't want to forget them. Do we want to demo use alternate with what's that alternate tool? I don't know what their tool is, so I'm gonna just ask myself and then I'll remember to come back and look at that. So what types of testing do we want? Do we want to automate that? System setup via all right. I'm just writing notes that I was thinking earlier and things that I have to write still for this. But anyways, we'll go through this, right? This will be organized AWX pipeline. The problem is I don't have a good way to give AWX to everybody, and I've tried to put it on. I'm gonna have to make a lab. If I can get a lab put together where I have AWX in up in Killer Code, if I can get that lab working, which shouldn't be too hard because there is a Kubernetes version of it If I can get that going, then that's going to be how a lot of our labs are done, just because it's nice to do it from one centralized place. So that'll be good. And then there's many tools in the dev toolbox. Ansible is over here and operate, but I argue that Ansible can do the build, test, release, deploy, and operate. I think Ansible can do a bunch of these. There's all these other ones, and guys, you can go look at like a million things online. Like if you go, what's that one, CNCF project science? You guys ever seen this? This is like one of the busiest slides I've ever seen or busiest. This might be bright for a second. If you guys have never seen this, this is like one of the brightest, just biggest. They might have a dark mode, but look at all this crap. KubeCon coming up. And when I say crap, I mean, it's just there's so much noise, right? Like, what do you want to integrate? And this is actually a thing that we talk about near the end of the course is, like, how do you decide? Do you build something in-house? Do you just make something? Do you buy something? So build and buy. And then there's adopt. Do you adopt one of these tools? And how do you define, like, how do you decide that you're going to use Kubernetes versus Knative? Like, I mean, Kubernetes is probably the flagship standard, but maybe you don't need something that robust. Maybe you're just using this as like a dev tool, and then when things go to prod, they're always physical boxes because of some policy or posture your organization has. Maybe that doesn't fit anymore, but for some reason some companies still do it. Who knows? I don't know. So anyway, so there's all this stuff. Continuous operations. I've never even heard of OpenCost. I've never even seen that before. That's interesting. So it was in the sandbox, incubating, all that. People working on it. Anyways, but that's not what we're doing right now. In summary, DevOps, like dev team and ops team have always been at odds. If you've been on either of those teams, you know that they try to like wring the other one's neck pretty often. But we're trying to make them work more together for the organization, right? Make the organization do the things that it should well. All right, anyways, let's get to these labs. Let's do some labbing. Goal of today is to do labs, right? But as we're doing the labs, I'm thinking about them kind of in context of these things and what we're doing over here. Like where are we putting these things? What are we doing? Let me see. We might just have one for troubleshooting. Maybe we'll say troubleshooting and testing. Because when you get done troubleshooting, you're going to need to test anyways. Maybe we'll just do a couple of weeks on that. That'll be good. All right. Let's talk about our environment. Teams decide they need a tool that they can use to control and operate the many servers. You've decided to look at Ansible. Let's get Ansible installed on the system. On most Debian-based systems, it is in the apt, well, at least on Ubuntu, it's in the main branch. So you can update it. Over on the Red Hat side, I'm pretty sure it's in main, but if not, it's over in EPEL. I'm pretty sure it's in main now. Let's look. Let's look on Rocky. I don't know about RHEL. I don't do RHEL boxes right now. That's why you don't. Man, sorry about that, guys. That's why you don't eat on stream. Jeez. All right. Let's see, what's the does it tell us the tells us the source RPM, but I thought it gave us, I don't see it here. DNF should tell us. I want to know where it was at in the repositories. So, does it not tell us? I thought it would tell us what repo it was from. All right. Well, we'd find that later. I'm not really super worried about that. Oh man. Sorry about that, guys. I'm like losing my crap over here. Kevin said urinary Olympics, aka corporate politics, unit 14 looks like a lot. Yeah, we could really go deep. So one of the big things about our course in general is our course tends to be more of a survey. It's 16 weeks. It's free, right? But we deal with. I didn't show you guys all this today, but we deal with kind of the explore, practice, apply model, where explore is like we talk about the things, we understand the context of them, we get the definitions, we get the, how these things kind of are moving parts in an organization, what the considerations are. Then we do some practicing, we do some labs around the technologies and tools because we got to know how to do it. And then we talk about applying these things that we're doing to like the corporate world, like real life workplace type context. So we're kind of adopting this explore, practice, apply type methodology to what we do here. So, yeah, so anyways, that's that. But yeah, you're right. 14, I mean, all of these I could spend a lot of time in each of these, right? But we'll go for that. All right. Try not to die over here. What's the Ansible version we're on? We see that we're on 2.16.3, so we've been moving forward. We see a bunch of information about where our modules are going to be found. That's useful if you got to go look them up or add or remove them. And we're going to take that, and just for this lab, we're going to throw that version into root version, which will allow us to move forward in the lab. So the point is we can go and see, if we're looking for a module or we're looking for documentation online or we want to read the Ansible docs, the version that we're using is going to be very important in that. If I go to the Ansible docs, right? Let's say copy module, right? I go to the built-in copy module. Here's the latest, or they used to have these actually by number, but I can come down here and I can look at the copy module and figure out. I actually really like this when you're writing, if you're learning how to write playbooks. I really think this is great because there's just so many good examples. And they say, well, what's all that stuff you scrolled by, right? Well, what I scrolled by was the minutia. Like if this doesn't work exactly right for you and you go, but I really need to know what my options are for backup. Like, I don't know what backup is. What is the context of this word backup? Because that could mean a lot of things, right? Backup here, backup there. I don't know what that means. I'm copying in a file, so backup probably means something to do with the file. But what are my options for backup? Then I come back up here, and I go look at the actual, this is where I like to do it. Backup by default is false. I can turn it to true, and it'll create a backup, including timestamp information, so you can get the original file back if you somehow clobbered it incorrectly. So backup true may be something that's pretty valuable, right? You want to, if you're deploying very quick config files and you just need to see what the differences were or what was stamped somewhere or something like that, this is the way that you might, excuse me, do that. All right, anyways, so over here, and I ran Ansible doc help, and I get a bunch of information about Ansible doc and what it's doing and where plugins are at and all these kind of things. And it gives me a bunch of different help, normal help type stuff. I can go look for specific things, right? But what I want to do is I want to just see how many of these things are there. So I run a command like this, Ansible doc-L with a word count-L. And what that'll do is that'll throw out, this used to always be like 3,300. Now it's 8,354 in this new version. So I want to go look at that. So I'm going to go pull this off of here. And this will drop us into an interactive shell, right? And look at all these Amazon ones. Oh yeah, look at that. But maybe I'm looking for a specific one. Now I did more, right? I think I did more. Yeah. Oh, I didn't do more. I just dropped in there. Let's see if this has a / search function. I'm not 100% sure it will, but it might. And let's say I looked for like copy, right? Yeah, there we go. And there's Ansible built-in copy right there. And I can hit N to go to all the versions of copy that exist. And remember, / with copy will take us forward, and then question mark copy and then hit enter and hit N will search up through a file. So / searches down through a file, hitting N each time for next, and you can do a question mark and you can search up through a file. So you can go up and down through files, right? You may also be able to get away with other letters, I'm not sure, but that's how I do it. Now that I see that there's this Ansible built-in copy, right? Right, there was Ansible.built-in.copy. I might come here and I might do this Ansible doc -s for Ansible built-in .copy. Now I don't typically write it out. I just use copy. And I don't know if one day they're eventually going to no longer allow that. But the way we used to write Ansible was just with the short name because everything came in with the modules. Now modules come in through different methods. So like Ansible.built-in is one of the built-in modules, and different ones will exist in different ways. So I have to believe like this one is still going to the right one. But I think you could also, I haven't ever tried this before. I think you can also use Ansible built-in copy to explicitly use that one in case you suspected that you had downloaded, or you built your own modules. Guys, you can build your own modules and drop them in there. And maybe you have another one that has the word copy in it. And again, I would probably avoid doing that kind of things. But the point is I can come in here and I can read all those same things. I can go look for, right, the word backup. And here's that same backup information that I just read on the internet earlier. So I don't have to be like if I was doing a test or something and I couldn't get out to the world, I could come in here and I could find the different, we call these options for the module, right? Doc-t keyword -l. Let me see. This is your find here. And then, does that find all the copy ones? I don't know if I did that wrong. Do I grep for copy? Oh, for all the keywords, I see. Let's just look at it regular. Oh, these are the these are the Ansible keywords. Okay. Yeah, that's probably useful too. Yeah, if you're constructing the top of your playbook or something and you don't know. Guys, I didn't learn my lesson. I'm gonna eat more of these. I didn't learn my lesson earlier. I do like that though. Yeah, there's a lot of these you might use for different reasons. Okay, so that might be one. That might be one that we add eventually too. That might be useful. Go grab my notes. What the heck's going on here? Come on, notes. Right. So we were over here. We were adding to this, and we're looking through the different parts of this that we're going to do. Unit 1, actually, you know what I need to do? I need to add all of these parts here so I have them. So let's just grab them all one at a time like this. That's the most annoying fucking thing that happens inside of this. Well, that's not great. That's fine. All right, Unit 2. Really? That's all right. Okay. I just need these ones for now. I'll do these other ones later, but I just need to as we're thinking about these and which labs that we would want to add or work on as we're going. We'll probably get those. Things like loop or notifier straightforward. Yeah. Leith, loop used to be with underscore items too, and that's kind of funny. I'm sure I'll give a little bit of context for some of those older commands that you'll still find, because you'll still find those in some of my scripts and playbooks and stuff. And it's just because that was before the standard became loop. We will be talking about those things, looping and such, will be over in probably environment and local variables. We'll get to like making, in here we'll probably be looping. So, we didn't even make, we haven't done any of the stuff we need to do. We need to make all this stuff updated. Lots to do, lots to add to the course. And the guys asked me to have it by this afternoon when they meet for the course. So, now we're not. So let's real quick. Let's make sure everybody knows what's going on. Leith, thank you for the Prime. Was that Prime? No, it's a regular subscription. Thanks for that. That keeps you from having to watch ads, which is nice. And normally I say when people do Prime, I'm like, you could use those anywhere. But yeah, you could use normal subscriptions anywhere. So I appreciate that. Today at 6, that's 6 my time, so that's quite a bit later today. The writer's room is going to be going for the automation course kickoff. If you guys haven't been involved with those writer rooms and want to be, I think that's one of the best things around here for like, one, getting to know the guys that are kind of pretty involved. And 2, if you want to put your name on something that like you can show people about the industry that you've done. Like if you're like, hey, what am I going to show people that I've done something in the industry? Well, we've got like this Linux admin course book, and if you guys haven't seen this book, this is the book the guys put together. It's from the course, right? And at the end, they have all the contributors. So if you want to know who built this, like if you're talking to somebody in an interview and they're like, hey, yeah, I was one of the guys who built that book, there are their names right there. So these are the guys who definitely helped with the book if they wanted to, right? And then there's another one over here. I don't know, I don't know if they ever dropped their contributors in here. They didn't drop their contributors in here. I'll tell them to do that one of these days. That's on them, but I mean, I want them to know. But they show how to get into contributing if you want to, right? If you want to be part of the team and help everybody out. Again, these books are always free. They're always going to be free. But they're getting ready to build the next book, right? The next book is going to be the Linux automation course. And all the books start with the syllabus, which is the syllabus that I'm writing here. And they all have the major instructional areas, which you're going to learn about, course objectives, how you go and get into the system, and then what the schedule is. So we pretty much have that, so I think they can start the first page of it, and then we modify it as we go, and I have until the course doesn't start. For people that want to start and do the course, courses are free, but they start on September 20th. So we're going to do another security engineering course for people that want to do that, and then we're also going to do the automation course. So that's all coming up for people that want to do that. Yeah, Runamucker, we're working on the job. Yeah, I'm working right now. I'm trying to get stuff going, and I meant to just do labs today, but I want to add some commentary around it because I've done these labs on Sundays for a long time. So, right, like I think you guys can do the commands in the labs if you're doing them and probably figure them out. That's the whole first one, just getting Ansible installed. So that lab will be one part of this course, and specifically here, it will be part of the practice. They need to find somewhere else to put that fucking thing. It always has to pop up right there. All right, so Killer Coda, the Ansible stuff will be part of that. We will need to do. Do we have ENV and I don't know if we have virtual environments. Oh, where would that be? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. They should have Python 3. They should be able to something like this, right? Oh, do I not need? What's they might not have all of them. What's the OS one? Is it OS Libs? I know this one, or I should know this one. I know where to find it though. Hold on. Watch this. I actually know where to find this, even though I don't. Socratic Linux, number of CPUs. This one. Ah, multiprocess, and there it is. Yeah, so that does an error, right? If we were to, then it would tell us there's no process. So, I mean, just as a quick, we're not going to do in the course a whole lot of Python. I've got some guys that work on Python professionally that might write some parts of the modules and stuff. But as far as like making sure that you have Python and that you have the modules that we need, we can do that. But what's the one? I got to go find it. Oh, Kevin, I'm missing a lot of your stuff over there. I was in the zone and I was choking to death. Yeah, Kevin. Also, the thing you mentioned about common things are pretty easy, but challenging to do the edge cases. I'm 100% on board with you on that, because when I use Ansible, I'm going to talk about this in the course for people that do it with me, but I call it painting with a wide brush. If you give me 1,000 servers to patch tonight, and I can hit 980 of them clean with Ansible, that's acceptable to me. I got junior engineers. I've got my time, while we're doing our patch window or whatever, to go clean up those last 20. But if I can save that, I mean, I'm still saving hundreds of hours of people's time to go patch servers individually, or even one-offing with scripts that you guys know when scripts break, they break where they break. Whereas Ansible's like more of a framework, and we can handle errors and all this kind of stuff. So all that to say, I'm a big fan of using the tool for what it's for. And in my case, Ansible's like what I call painting with a wide brush, or what I call like a Plinko machine, right? Like all the machines, all the servers come in, you drop in whatever number of servers. I don't even care what servers there are at the beginning of the night, really, because my playbook should be able to handle most of the use cases. And then they get, all the servers go all the different directions that they need to through the little Plinko machine or whatever. So that's always been kind of my way of using it. But all right, where are we at here? So that'll be practice. That'll be one of the practices for automation installation. We might need a basic checkout of Python 3, right? Because guys are going to use Python 3, and then basic checkout of Bash, because those are kind of the automation tools that we're targeting for this. So, what are you doing in your environment? What are the tools that we're going to use to do these automations and these type of things? And then we can kind of go from there. So, and then, yeah, explore, practice, apply around all that. So I gotta write all that up. But let's go to the next part of the lab, or the next lab. If anybody wants to do it with me, here's the lab. This is Ansible host file. So this is inventory stuff. So this is going to come much later in the actual course, because we're not going to do inventories yet. We can interact with the local operating system first. This will be 3. So 3 is going to get, 3 is going to be making inventories. Go right, oops. Making and using inventories. So here's this lab. Be part of it. This will be part of it. It won't be the whole thing for practice, but it'll be part of it. We also have a home lab environment, the ProLug lab environment that people can get into during the courses and do all those kind of things. Yeah, Kevin, I've actually seen that from people. The guys that I know that have went and done their RHCE, they're all using Ansible for it. In fact, my understanding is that the RHC is just an Ansible test now. So, an Ansible test to do things in Linux, which is, I think, actually pretty valuable. If people want to get that, that's a good one to showcase your knowledge in the space, right? Like, that's a good one to kind of show people that you know what you're doing. So your teams decide they need a tool that they can use to control and operate everything in your environment. You know that an inventory is one of the most important parts of sysadmin, so you want to get it right, set up, and complete the different inventory challenges. So we're going to build an inventory out in this one, right? And then you're going to create a file called root hosts with the hosts in your network. And the hosts in your network, the servers that you're dealing with, are control plane and node 01. By the way, I should be able to check that. I should be able to say host name. Whoops, if I can spell. And I should be able to SSH to node 01 and say host name over there. And he's node 01. He's identified the same way as he is, and that's good. So we vi root hosts in this case, and we make a file called it's just a normal host file, servers. And then inside of servers, we're going to say control plane and node 01. Now this is what we call an INI formatted file, or I guess any. I've never heard that said, so I just always call it INI file. That's the format that's being used. There's two formats that Ansible can ingest these things with, and I think it says it down here. But I do need to put that under the Explorer, so Ansible inventories, right? How to build your inventory. This will be part of this as far as the Explore part, which is kind of like the, let's call that like the pre-reading. But again, you guys that have seen the course, you know that that's, I don't just dump this stuff on you like this. Typically, it comes in something more like this, right? You've got a worksheet, and the worksheet has all of the, well, we've got discussion questions, so I always write the discussion questions out for you. And then we get down to definitions, and definitions are all the things that I think that you need to kind of go before you go and move forward. And then you're digging deeper is like more of that applying stuff later, but I'm going to kind of modify this as we go forward, right? What week is this? Did I really do that on week 1? Oh, it was week 2. I was like, what the hell week are we on? Yep. So, okay. That is true. INI and YAML are the only inputs. And then the outputs, it's actually interesting. You can only do JSON, YAML, graph, and there may be another one. But it's interesting that of the outputs that you can get from the system, only one of those is able to be used as an input, which is YAML. So I don't use YAML for my generation of files. I always generate them. And we're going to actually have an API in the environment. So when you build your inventories, this is where the course kind of gets. This is the hard thing of building a course in general. If I don't make you hit, yeah, see how I don't have anything in here for when I'm going to make you guys start hitting APIs. We have to hit APIs here, right? And the reason you say, why do you have to hit an API here? Well, because if I'm making you pull an inventory, and I'm going to go put an inventory out in an API in my environment in the home lab, and I'm going to make you hit that. Well, I guess we could do it I could build a lab in Killer Coda and then have it be there as well. But if I'm going to make you pull that inventory in and use that as like a source of truth, assuming that you were like pulling it from like a CMDB, we're pretending to be pulling it from like a CMDB that's managed by the company in some way. I have to have you hitting an API at this point. So API labs are probably going to be coming in. API to pull inventory, right? So I have to have an API lab set up, which actually I do have an API lab. It just doesn't make you do that. So we'll do that. SOC Hokage thought the inventory was located at 10. No, you can put your inventory wherever you want. In fact, I'm a big fan of local inventories when you're doing work. Like I generate them programmatically and I keep them local, and then they stay with like, let's say I was patching for, let's say it was the August patching, and at the end of the month we're going to do the August prod patching, right? Now I can pull from like a generic, like I'll have generic Ansible repositories like in Etsy. It's actually currently it's Etsy Ansible hosts is what it used to be. Etsy Ansible hosts is where it is in modern Ansible. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I always pull one local. I generate it based on whatever inventory I'm given or whatever I pull out of my CMDB, which is like ServiceNow or Sharewell, whatever I pull, right? Then I keep a local version of the host file in that body of work, in that, whatever you want to call that, for our patching that night. And then let's say patching was Sunday night. Let's say patching was Sunday night. We would then I would use that local inventory. And then if somebody ever came later and said, Scott, why didn't you hit these other hosts? Why did you miss this like 12 servers over here in dev or in the prod environment? There were these new servers over there. I'd be like, oh, that's real interesting. Let's go look. All right. They're not in my inventory file. They're not what we reviewed in the CMD. Like, and guys, I try not to be combative. I try to just be open kimono about everything. But it's like, I have where I pulled it from. The CMDB is not maintained by me. I just happen to know a lot about the Linux servers because I'm the guy that's maintaining them all. But the CMDB is owned by the company. The servers that were approved to be patched were in that CMDB, and I pulled them. This is my list of them. This was when they were pulled. This was, you see what I'm saying? Like, I have, like, it's not even cover your own ass. It's just do good work. I will work on whatever servers you give me. And I tell people this all the time. This is like one of the conundrums of being like a Linux engineer and a Linux systems admin for that point. People think that you know everything. People think that you're just going to figure everything out and work it. But it's like, I could patch everything in the fucking company tonight, right now. I can do it right now. I used to tell my boss this all the time. I can patch everything right now. It'll be done in 12 minutes. The problem is, it's only what you guys bring to me. It's like you all own fleets of cars, and I was the guy that was required to change the oil. But then you're asking me why patching and why I'm not changing the oil on your cars, but you never bring them to me. And I'm like, well, until your guys bring them in, I'm never gonna be able to do it because our oil changes are our downtime when I'm allowed to do stuff in the environment. If you never give me downtime, I can't do anything in your environment. Similar to that, I'm not the guy in charge of what servers are released. Now, should I have caught that? Maybe. I mean, I'm doing things and I'm getting the environment prepped. But the point is, I programmatically pulled the list that you guys gave me. And typically, I report that out at the beginning. Like, here's all the servers that are up. Here's all the servers I'm doing. Nobody catches it, right? Nobody's ever looking at that crap anyways. And then at the end, I report out, 980 servers were done. And we've patched them all. Everybody should go check. But one thing I do always do is I always check for all my servers that were in my patch window have rebooted. Right, that's a check I do. There's actually checks like that up in my Discord that you guys can see in like the sandbox channel. Man, guys, I have a headache. Anyways, let's keep going. Let's keep working on this. Let's get admin commands and one-offs. We're going to be working on these. And again, part of this is you guys might notice this and go, well, some of this stuff isn't super like difficult and doesn't maybe necessarily require a whole week. No, but it might not take a whole week to do the technical side of it, but it may take us that long to talk about, like, because you got people that don't have as much background and haven't done this stuff as much, so we got to give them context. We have to give them, how we got to these states that we're in and this kind of stuff. Yeah, Kevin, I used to argue with my boss. I used to tell my boss, if you're gonna run patching in an environment, right? Because we'd get dinged if people didn't put their servers in. But it's like, but I don't control them. What I told my boss is we have to get the company to buy in. We have to get somebody high enough up in infrastructure and like operations and shit. If it's got to be the CISO because it's a security vulnerability to have patches out there. We have to have a time, like, think about this, guys, for a second. I've never been to New York, but I've seen the subways. I've been on subway systems, right? But never in New York. But where I'm going with that is those doors have to close sometime. They have to eventually close. You have to get people out or into the door. Somebody can't just sit there and hold the door open. And this is why I used to tell my boss, at the end of the month, we have to give them options, sure. Be as nice as you want with the carrot, but eventually the stick has to fall and that door has to close and patching has to go in those environments. Or, guys, patching can be any maintenance you want. It doesn't have to be patching. It can be getting them off of RHEL 5. I know guys that were on RHEL 5 until last year with some government systems. That's fucking atrocious. Yeah, so like we need to be able to move our environments forward. And again, you have to have a time that the door closes. And so let me tell you a story. I had a buddy that used to work. There's a thing out here in the Southwest. I don't know if this is everywhere in the U.S., but there's a place called Safeway. Safeway is like a little Kroger grocery or Fry's grocery, if you guys know what those are. But they're a little grocery store, right? And early on, like in the early 2000s, before even like maybe the 2000 teens, so probably even a little before that, they had a little grocery service where you could call them up or get on their little site. This was before Amazon was delivering and stuff. And, well, Amazon was delivering, but I don't think they were delivering groceries back then. But anyways, they would have somebody go through the store and shop for you, and then they would take it to you, right? This was a little service that Safeway had. And my buddy worked for him, and they would take calls. And people would have, like, checked on the page, like, if I can't find 1% milk, I'll take 2% milk and all this stuff. And he said people would always call in and they'd be like, can I change this? Or, can I change that? And they'd be asking this little stuff. And one of his buddies used to always go, no, you can't change that. The trucks are rolling. And then he would hang up on people. And that's kind of like a joke with me and my friend group for many, many years. I mean, ever since my friend Sam told us all that. But yeah, working at Safeway, they used to just go, the trucks are rolling, and they would hang up on people. So that's how I feel about this. Like, eventually the door has to close and the trucks have to roll. You can't just hold it up forever. So yeah. Oh yeah, so Kevin, yeah, you guys still have Rel 6, yeah. And Rel 6 Rel 5 was end of service life 2019 maybe, but people were still on support contracts. Rel 6, we could find it, but end of service life many years now. But there's still support contracts. And a lot of government contracts can't do that because if you ever read the Red Hat clause, if you guys ever go look in the life cycle with the extended support, it says right in it, but Red Hat can choose to not support this at any time. That is not an acceptable clause for any government contract I've ever been on. You have to get off it before it gets to extended service life. At least projects I've been on. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but for me, projects I've been on, we have to get off them. All right, where were we at? That was Unit 3, Unit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got to do 5. So let's just do them all. I mean, I was trying not to. This was all from my same. When I copied them. Again, guys, this thing just is always in the way. Always in the way. And what I was trying to do was I want to get this ready for the guys because the guys are putting the book together later. So. Yeah, now, you also have security. Yeah, the security posture of your organization. Ever since people, your C-suite individuals can't say they didn't know things anymore. That's not a defense in court. They have to know that we're actually patching stuff, and they can't just get away with saying, "Well, I didn't know what my security team was doing." The buck stops at the C levels nowadays. If you guys ever wondered why C-suites and C level, that's C-suite, like CEOs and CISOs and those kind of people. The reason they are so involved in, when you're like, man, I would think these people are more hands-on. And if you guys haven't dealt with any of them in your careers, good, be thankful. But I work with a lot of CISOs and chief technical officers and stuff like that because I directly answer to them, or my reports directly go to them on different projects I'm on, and they have to be involved. They can't just like be laissez-faire about it. It's very much more. It's their butt on the line nowadays. All right, what are we at? 7. Yeah. Automating Docker builds. Yeah. I kind of want to fix those. Yeah, that's fine. Those names are fine. The names are fine. We'll. You don't go when you're ready. You go when you're ready enough, right? Colonel Graff said that to Ender in Ender's Game. You're never ready. You go when you're ready enough. He actually didn't say it to Ender. He said it about Ender, but because the idea is you're never going to be completely ready for war. You're just going to go when you're ready enough. Ask me how I know that. It is a great book, Sending Grounds, that's true. But I happen to know that from having kicked in many doors in Iraq and doing many infantry things for a long time over there. But also, yes, it is a fantastic book for in general. I never got into the other ones. My brothers all swear by the other ones, and I'm like, Orson Scott Card lost me after the first one. I tried to get to the second one, and I made it like 15 pages in the second one. I never finished it. Yeah, how do I know that? Yeah. Spent a lot of time in the late 90s and early 2000s prepping for war. Actually, in case you guys don't know, the U.S. used to plan for war with Russia. That was what we used to do. And then after 9/11 happened, we flipped over to fighting in the Middle East, and then all these counterinsurgency things had to start happening because it wasn't just some standard infantry on the line or guerrilla type combat. It was like urban combat. So. Well, that's not what we do around here, though. That's not what we do around here. All right. I think I might be far enough up that I don't have to go work on those anymore. But let's go back here. So we're adding to the Linux automation course outline. I think I have most of these. I'm up to 11, so these other ones I'll fill in as we go. But we're doing labs, right? We're working through labs over here. The labs are on Killer Coda. They're super easy to find. Second one's very good. Different than the first. Yeah. Second one dealt with the politics and stuff that his sister and brother got into, right? And my brothers all swear by him and say they're great, and I just never got into the other one. I love Orson Scott Card as an author. I think the guy's a great author. If you guys don't know, he runs writers' workshops for people. You can go up to Utah and do those kind of things with him, but I just don't. I'm not super involved with it. Okay, so let's run a little bit of a one-off now. We've got the inventory built, right? Which inventory is everything, guys. Your runs and your plays and your automation and your pipelines and literally everything you do, I would say as an engineer of systems and as a security engineer, is going to hinge on how good your inventories are. One of my buddies that's he's actually one of our mods in the Discord, Faint Calf, and I've known him I've worked with him 3 times in my career now. Worked with him 3 different times in my career, and he would always say, he's like, yeah, if I don't have a good inventory, I don't have any security. And he's right. What if I told you, what if I like dubbed you RoboCop and I put you in a RoboCop suit and you had all his speed and his power and whatever, and then I dropped you in like a hospital and I said, protect this hospital. You get to do it Call of Duty style, like zombies or whatever. But I don't tell you like how many wings there are, and I don't tell you how many doors there are, and I don't tell you how many windows there are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are. You can't protect everybody in there because you don't even know the scope of the thing, right? Like you don't know. It's like this idea, you don't even know what you don't know. So honestly, like, and this is I can't emphasize this enough. When we get to like our inventory, which will be unit 3, your everything you do as an engineer will only be as good as your inventory. If you don't have that inventorying, pulling the API down, getting that stuff I was saying earlier, where I'm like, I did patching this weekend, but I didn't get from the CMDB the right thing. That's still probably going to reflect poorly on me. Even though I did everything right, and even though my process was perfect and everything, people are still going to shit on that on the Monday morning operations call because Scott didn't patch all sorts. So Linux team only patched 97% of what they were going to do. Now we got to go into remediation mode for it. It's like, fuck, I wasn't even the one that picked the servers. You guys did. And man, I'll tell you what, nothing ever sticks to the change management team because those guys aren't engineers. They're just all right. I'm not going to be mad, but I'm going to call Ansible, and I'm going to use an ad hoc mode to do it. So ad hoc mode is, I don't even know why they picked a different, well, okay, we'll just call it ad hoc mode, but I'm going to call Ansible by itself, and I'm going to use a host group. The host group is defined right here inside of the inventory file. Everything under here is the host group. We can use wildcards in there. We can do a bunch of stuff to build our inventories. That's all over here in this inventory thing that we're going to explain and talk about and look at in the discussions, right? Yeah, run amucker. I try to tell people, like, as an engineer, I just show people like what I know about a thing. I try to show them where things went right and where they went wrong, and then we can deal with that, right? Like I don't try to I'm not good at the politics part of it. I'm too blunt, and I don't care to argue with people. Like I tell people, I've already fought the only war I'm ever gonna fight. I don't have any hills to die on for that kind of stuff. I mean, I'll laugh at people on the internet. Don't get me wrong, I love doing that, but I don't I don't get into these arguments. So anyway, so we'll do a little ad hoc running one-off command. And by the way, earlier it was mentioned that Ansible looks by default in etc Ansible host for the host configuration. We can override that. We're going to use a local host file, root hosts. That's cool. And then we're going to use the module ping. The ping module, I have to emphasize, is not ICMP ping. It is not ICMP echo requests and replies being sent at layer 3 across the... It's not that. It is just the nodes going over there, and I'll prove that to you here in a second. But we're going to take that output and we'll throw it into a file just so that we have it. But let's run that original command again, and this is kind of fun. We can add a bunch of verbosity to this. It's one of my favorite things to show people. Say there's something wrong with your Ansible. Let's say there's something that just, it comes out and it's bleeding red all over the screen. Well, we can go look at what's happening under the hood. We can see here, we'll get that little, this is just like when we did Ansible help. Gives us all the information about the version of Ansible. So if I were to go like try to, let's say I just couldn't get this to work. It was working yesterday, we updated Ansible, it doesn't work anymore. And maybe I have some support on Ansible through Red Hat or something. Maybe I have the ear of one of their security teams and they tell me where to go put in a ticket. Well, the very first thing that you guys need to do, I'm telling you, if you just want to save yourself one day of headache, especially if management's, barking at you and you got to do an operations call in the morning, save yourself the nightmare. Just give everybody the versioning info. That's the first thing. Like, help desk is trained to ask for that right off the bat. So just dump that in the window and say, this is the thing that we're doing. But now you can come down here and you can see, did it parse correctly? Well, there were a bunch of things that didn't parse right, but it said that this did not pass a verify file method, but it did pass. It did work. Root hosts worked when they used the INI plugin. So that means it failed with all these other methods. Probably, the other method that you can use, which is YAML. But it did work here. Skipped a bunch of things that maybe we could have done, but we didn't. And then it starts to reach out to those machines. If the SSH connection doesn't work, you're going to get, I couldn't resolve a name. I couldn't, there's all these things that can break right here. But we SSH'd over, and we were able to do the simplest little check for the shell. We did a bin sh-c. That's what Ansible did. Now, that was just run as a simple SSH command over there, just exec SSH, and it made sure that it could connect to control plane and node 01. Control plane, node 01. There we go. Come down here. It's going to establish SSH connection for a user, so it's going to do that, and it's going to check some permissions and make sure that it can write some files out and do that kind of stuff. And then it's going to go connect over there, and it's going to push over the module for ping. The ping module is super simple. We can go look at it. Watch, I'll show you right here where we see the file that's going to push over. By the way, there's all the information about it because it goes and finds out what version of Python it's using over there. Gets down here. Let's go look at what it's going to push over there. It's going to say, we'll get down here. It'll be an SCP command because it's actually going to SCP it over. Put root. Where's he at? Hold on, it's down here. Here's the module file for ping. So maybe I suspect, let's just say I suspected, I don't know why I would suspect this, we had it work, but let's say something told me that the module file wasn't right. We go dig into this we got the same Python experience as anybody, maybe not the same, but we can go look at, here's that module file. This is exactly what happens when Python gets executed over there, and we can actually see Ansible call it if we want. But it's going to say that all it did was go in there and pretty much ping. Yeah, here's the string default Pong, and it just prints out Pong back to you. That's literally all this thing does. Where's it at? Yeah, all it does is check it, and then it raises an exception if it doesn't work. But it should. Where's the print at? I don't see the print. Anyways, you can look into it more. But the point is, it's all there. You can watch it run right here. You want to see it actually happen? Here's the execution right here. It's going to go, this is it removing. This is it cleaning up and getting rid of it when it's done. But where's the execution of it? You'll actually see the Python call. That's it checking. And then here should be, yeah, user bin Python 3 calls the file that it pushed over there right there. So my point is, we can step through all the things that Ansible tried to do or failed or whatever and see where it broke as it's pushing these things over and staging and doing all that. Things that I've seen errors with here, you don't have permissions to run things. Maybe you're trying to sudo and you don't have permission to sudo. There's all kinds of little things that can happen here, but for the most part, you're probably going to see this work, right? Very rare that you wouldn't see Python on a box, but Red Hat systems sometimes still have Python 2.7, and I still support supercomputing systems where we still have users. Guys, I realize Python 2 has been deprecated since, I don't know what, 2015 or so. and people have just been using it for funsies or something. I don't know. It's still been deployed with Red Hat systems until recently. My point in saying that is some people kept their code on it, even though they've been telling them forever to get off it. And I actually have, and I can't tell you exactly which supercomputer this is on, but in one of my government systems, people are still running too. And we're like, oh, we can't remove that? No. And we use tools like SPAC to add or remove environments. No, we still got to support it because there's still this one thing that's still like a linchpin for everything else in the government. Anyways, all right. So I'm going long in the... Team's going to be adding new servers. So now we're going to update that file with servers that don't exist yet, but we're going to do it for fun. Let's VI root hosts and Shift G O, and we'll add in these new servers. They don't exist yet, or maybe they don't exist in the way that we care about them yet. But what do we have here? So we have servers. Those are the definitions of the two servers in our environment. And now we have a thing called test environment. And maybe you don't want to use spaces or underscores. They work, but I think they throw some kind of little warning. But so test environment and prod environment, and maybe we have a control test and a control prod, and those are the new names of servers that are coming in, or maybe we're planning on naming them those. And then we've got a non-prod designation. So this is another host group, non-prod, and it is comprised of servers and test environment. So everything above where I'm at right here, everything above this is part of non-prod. So if you wanted to patch non-prod or do some fix on non-prod, you can do it up here with just this non-prod as your inventory or as your host group. But prod underscore env doesn't have something like that. We didn't give that. We also are assigning variables over here. We can name the variables whatever we want, and we call them client and server just for fun because then we could look at them or do whatever. Now again, these servers don't even exist. We're just making them up at this point. But then when we're done with that, we'll escape :WQ, and we'll go run Ansible inventory against them to kind of list out what the system sees. So, real quick, we had an INI format that we fed this with. We stuffed it down into Ansible's throat like that, right? Like it looked like one of those, I don't know, like a little baby chick or something, and the mom's stuffing the food in it, right? And right here, this is root host, so we know how we put it in there, but look at how it came out. That's definitely not YAML, guys. That's definitely not INI. Anybody know what that is? I mean, I'm not like trying to trick you guys or anything, but does anybody know what that default output is when you didn't give an argument to it besides list? What does that look like to you guys? It's definitely a semi-structured thing, right? It's not quite all the way straight. It's JSON, right? Yeah. So it can output JSON. We now know that. And then I say, well, what about here, right? We could use graph. It'll come out in a graph if we want. And I tell guys, like, I think that looks fine, like if you want to give that to management or maybe cut off the top of that and give it to management. But I think that's not programmatically useful for anybody, probably. Maybe somebody has a graph parser that they want to use, but that looks like crap to me is my point. but maybe. You can also see it in YAML. And remember the one thing I said about YAML? YAML's the only one that you can feed this with. You can feed INI or YAML, but of the output types, what does that mean? If I come to an environment and you say, hey, Scott, can you take this, can you like snapshot this environment real quick, do some tests at home, get kind of ready from what we have and tell us what's probably going to make our inventory a little better, I can pop out their exact inventory like this and take it home with me. Stuff it right into my Ansible, whatever environment I am. Now, you might say, well, you don't have all the environment stuff. Yeah, there's other things we can worry about mirroring stuff later, but the point is I can get it out in an ingestible format. It can come out one and go in another, which is super useful, right? Or can be super useful. And then I say, which of those outputs were the most useful to you, and which do you think you'd like to see or use in your environment? Programmatically, maybe the most useful one for a lot of people for like if you were looking at an Ansible inventory and doing something else with it, might be this. Because a lot of people, I mean, there's all kinds of JSON and JQ parsers and all kinds of crap like that out there in the world. I can look at this hierarchy all day, right? Anyways, so that's something to think about. And then check, and it says, looks to you learning Ansible, you built that whole thing. So that lab's pretty straightforward too, right? Inventories, how we build inventories, that kind of stuff. let's do. All right. So that was lab 2. And again, I'm just throwing labs kind of over here where they belong. And let's go look at, let's do some Ansible ad hoc. And I will probably throw this one over here as a base. Again, this is not going to be all the stuff in the labs. By far, this is not going to be all the things that are going to happen. Because if any of you guys have done the course, you know that the average workload per week that I've been going for you guys is about 8 to 10 hours. So people that did the courses and actually worked through the stuff, you probably spent about 8 to 10 hours a week on this. And that's the thing, man. Like if you told me, hey Scott, I want to get in really good shape and I want to, go run a marathon or something, I wouldn't tell you to work out, 2 hours a week. You would probably run 2 hours a day if you were getting ready for a marathon. If you were like doing a strongman thing, I'd be like, well, we're going to have to lift more than just 40 minutes every 3 days or something. That's not going to work for you. We got to put you under some load, right? It's the same type of thing. Anyways, where was I at here? So let's look at this lab. If anybody wants to do this lab with me, here's the lab, Twitch and YouTube. Again, we're just talking through them. I'm adding some kind of commentary to them as we do them. They're free in Killer Coda. They don't charge you nothing for them. I don't charge you nothing for them. Your team's decided they need a tool that they can use to control and operate the many servers you have in your environment. You've been tasked with evaluating Ansible. Wonderful. Ansible's a tool. It's something that we can do. You know that individual modules can be called in ad hoc mode, so we can just run things against different environments. So you decide to try running some commands against your test inventory of servers. So we already have now a set of servers. We already have an inventory. So from then on, if you do the labs in Killer Coda that I put together, you don't have to build the inventory anymore. All the inventory is set for you now from now on. But I still think it's valuable to go look at it. And I say, here's some kind of interactions, some one-off things to kind of go do. We can verify our host file. Good. We can verify the server's uptime. We can verify the types of servers and the operating systems that they have. We can go look at the dates and times of those servers. And all of these things that we might want to know are useful later when we start to talk about the variables and the decisions that we can make, which I think I'm not doing really until like Unit 5. So it's going to be like variables and decisions and those kind of things based on the types of things that are happening. Yeah, should be all right. Okay. Check our time. Good. So this one is, yeah. Let's do it real quick. So what do we want to do? We're going to cat out root host. We did that, and we can just check all the servers uptime with a simple shell command. So we can do Ansible servers, which hits the host group of servers. So it's control plane and node 01. We use that inventory file explicitly as opposed to whatever the default one is. I never like hitting the default one when I'm doing stuff real. I want to use my local file. That's I don't want to say it's a non-negotiable for me, but that's like a decision I made early on because I can control things locally. We can also have a .cfg. We can have a config file in this directory, and we can change the behavior of Ansible with that config file as well. That's also a nice thing. You can set local logging with that too, and then logging will be part of this. So let's say I had a directory in here called, like Ansible ad hoc, right? And then I just go in there, and now everything I do could just be like if I was running playbooks and tasks against the environment, everything could be down in this Ansible ad hoc or August patching 2025 or whatever. I mean, whatever we wanted to call it, we could call it, and then everything would be like we talk about it's almost like a work product or a work artifact of all the things that we did can be reported down in there, which can be nice, can be useful. I think it's useful for auditing. If anybody ever asks you, hey, what were you guys doing? Like, why did this thing not work right? And you go, oh, well, when we got to that server, in our pre-checks, we saw that the patching was working. Like our RPMDB was built, and there wasn't any problems there, and we were able to get to our our environments. But then when we went to update, like, I don't know, let's say your version of Python, you had a non-standard version of Python set in Etsy alternatives, and we weren't able to update it, so it crashed out, and then we had to go manually find that, figure it out. update everything so that we were past security problems, and then change back to your version in Etsy alternatives and get it all working again. These are real things that happen, right? So then you do all that and you explain that to them, and then if they have any other questions, then you have the data that you can go back and dig in and show them how, well, all these other servers patched, but your servers in your environment had these other things that weren't tracked. Yeah, maybe we need to put, so two things can come from that. Either they need to keep their environment more clean and we need to take their powers of sudo away that they had, or we need to make our checks better, right? I need to make my checks better so that I catch that. Maybe my solution is this. I just skip that type of patching. I go past that kind of thing on those servers from now on. That could be a thing. That's what we call a one-off. But if you build it in, that's something there. Yeah, Leith, yeah, you can call them build artifacts, patching artifacts. Yeah, artifacts, things that we can go look at, right? We can figure out what was going on in the environment. So that's cool to just do things like this one-off. This is very much an ad hoc way of doing things. And some people would say, well, you'll never use the shell command because it's bad practice. It breaks idempotency by default. It does. It does, true. In fact, this always has to come back changed. The shell command can never not come back changed. And you say, what do you say? You just said never not. Well, that's what I meant. It has to come back changed every time. And you say, well, why? Well, because during the short little time that this shell is happening, Ansible has lost control of execution. Ansible is firing cannons off into the night. That's the way I always describe it. That's the way that I think it makes most sense. Ansible does not have any control of the execution that's happening until it gets a return code back, and then it can continue on. By the way, we can do that same command again, right? We can run that command again, and we can throw the VVV on it as well. And watch this. We'll actually see more information about how it executed. We should see it up here. Maybe we don't. Ah, there we see it. I thought we had... Now, if when we do it in a playbook and we register the variable, you'll see all the variable output, but we won't worry about it right now. But suffice it to say, you got more information coming, and we've got this other thing we can do. We can run the setup module, and the setup module is running a tool called Factor and just gathering information about servers. What does the server know about itself? And I always tell people this is going to dump like 16 pages to the screen, but it is in JSON output. Very easy for us to look at it. And it's very easy for us to parse this down and figure out kind of what's going on inside of this environment. Hey, thanks for the follow. Hopefully, Zach, this is useful to you. We are looking at Ansible. We're looking at useful things about decision making in Ansible. But my point in showing you guys this is like I can see all of this stuff about the environment. I might need to make inventories too, and then interacting with the OS 3, because it would be nice to have the inventories and then do this. Yeah, maybe. But anyway, so we can also, inside of this, we can give an argument. So this is fun. We can give an argument to this command. I'm going to type it out so you guys don't have to look there. And I'm going to CD back just so that you have a little more room. And I'm going to give a filter. And the filter is going to use kind of just like a search function, you know, a normal regex type search function. And I can just say I want just the Ansible distribution from those nodes. Give me just that. And that's mildly useful. How might I use this, right? This may be useful if I had, if just out of the blue somebody messaged me 30 servers. This happens. You know, you're a guy who people know fixes things in your organization. You'll just get a call up from somebody and they'll say, hey, I've got these 30 servers in this dev environment. 2 of them aren't behaving like we want. Can you just go check them real quick? And you take that list and you throw it in something like this in a little working directory. Maybe you got a little sandbox. And you go hit all those boxes. And all you're doing is looking to see that they're all Ubuntu boxes. And you find that 2 of them are RHEL 9. Or 28 of them are RHEL 8 built on the old process, and 2 of them are RHEL 9. And yeah, they're not working because they don't have all the same packages. That RHEL 9 went to DNF and DNF is hard set, and you've got all these app streams, right? And it's different configuration under the hood on the repos than it is in Rel 8, even though it's almost the same thing. But your developers, if they have that kind of right to update their dev environments and test things and do that kind of stuff, if they have those sudo rights, they almost always don't know the underlying things that are happening. They're just DNF install, DNF whatever, give me JRE environment. Why does this one have JRE 22 and this one doesn't have, like, they don't know. So you're there to tell them, like, hey, I did find a delta and I found it really quickly with a tool like this. You don't have to show them all that. But my point is, you get snappy responses. And then let's say that happens enough. Then we start to turn that into like a playbook. And then maybe we have quick lookups and other things. There's all kinds of other guys. You might just say, well, why don't you just have a good inventory? Guys, some of us, our environments change pretty often, but we tend to have pretty good inventory with tools like Satellite. Like Satellite's my favorite API to pull things from, because it's all the things that Red Hat's charging you for. So it's all the shit that can be updated in your environment. So that's like a simple thing, right? All right, anyways, so there we go. Send that output. I think we have to put this into a file. Let's just run them all again real quick. Here's your uptime. There's your setup, bunch of information. Throw the filter distribution on there for just the Ansible. And you can modify that, by the way. You can put an asterisk on it and say, show me all of them, because maybe there's something I don't remember the exact thing I want. Here's all the things Ansible distribution and plus, right? And then I say, well, what about send that output to a file? We need that output in a file so that we can continue with the lab. And then maybe we do date time. This is one of my favorite ones to show you guys. I like showing you date time, because if you're not a software engineer or like a software developer of some type, you probably don't deal with a lot of these timestamps. But some of you guys do deal with parsing timestamps and stuff. So for me, I deal with timestamping almost exclusively in the context, almost 100% of the time, some API calls, I guess, but almost 100% of the time, like really approaching 100%, in the file system, right? Touching files, pulling files, scrubbing files after they get so old. And my favorite one of all of these to use is this one, ISO basic short. It's concise to the time that I need it. It's unique. If I run it multiple times against like log files or something, it's going to generate one. And then you can keep going from there, right? What's this one? Ansible Facts OS. What is this? This is a command? I don't, yeah, we don't even have Ansible Facts. I don't even know what that is. Is that inside? I don't know what that is. SOC Hokage. I don't know what that. But if you're talking about like inside a playbook, is that like a module or something? I don't know what that is. But so we can run these. We can see different things. We can look at just the hour that something happened. Maybe we just need something to occur. But the point is, what level of precision do you need? And one of the ones I always like to show people here is if you are going to interact with something else programmatically, this is almost always the one you want, because this is the one that other tools and timestamps and RFC standards adhere to, is this ISO 8601, right? So this is one that's good to understand and know that it's there. And like, I can't tell you all the things that you might use it for, but for me, I like stamping files, and I always stamp files with this. Like if I'm doing like log files, this is what I'm stamping them with right here. ISO basic short. If I'm stamping report files, that's what I'm stamping them with. All right. And the reason is because we don't want the we don't want the colons in there. Okay. We can filter. Oh, let's throw that in a file as well. Yeah, there's a lot of value to that. There's a lot of stuff that you can do kind of there. So anyways, that's that whole challenge there for lab 3. And did we put lab 3 somewhere? Yeah, we called this over here, and Ansible commands and one-offs. So that's good. Parse server info, like the ad hoc command. But do you have to have something in there? Because my system doesn't see that command. Is that like Ansible? Never used whatever that is. Okay, so let's go back one. Get out of here, and let's go look at some of these other things that we're working on. Move this over again. Out of the way. And so we've got some of the inventory stuff. We've got interacting with the OS. Obviously, this stuff's going to get added to as well because it's not just about Ansible. Of course, it's not just about Ansible. We're going to have Python and Bash involved as well. So we're going to be modifying some of these to kind of deal with that. Interacting with the operating system will also be Bash and Python stuff as well. In fact, this one might be pretty Ansible light, because once I got to get you into inventories before I can really get you doing ad hoc commands as far as Ansible goes. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3. Get that going. Oh yeah, we got a lot to do. Got a whole lot of crap to do, guys. I got a lot of stuff to put together. I'm very glad I have a group of guys that kind of run behind and do all the writing. So I just kind of build the courses, and then we run through the courses, and then the guys have been building the books. So if you're looking for like, hey, who do I thank for the books? That's the guys here at the end of them, right? There's the contributors and stuff. But yeah, the courses are out here. They're putting this one together, so they're putting a new one here, and then we'll have the Linux administration course as well. So it'll be all these different pieces. All right, anyways, so we're back over here. 11, 12. Let's get 13 up there. Meeting and reporting on drift. So some of these will look similar, but we'll look at them in a different context to how we did them in the security course, right? They won't be the exact same context, but they'll be similar information, right? 13, 14 will be a big one. Let's pull this over here. All right, 15, 16. 15 and 16, troubleshooting. So we'll have some broken ones, and we'll look at how help if I can type. We will purposely break them in the labs and for fun to see what troubleshooting type of things that we can run into. That'll be good. All right, got that part at least etched out at a high level, so I can keep building those things. That'll be good. Where else were we at? What were we doing here? Here we go. Have we lost my labs? All right, Ansible Labs. Ansible Labs. I've got to make a bunch more for the course. So we did all those. The fourth one is, it's the same thing with the ad hoc commands, so we don't have to jump into this one unless anybody wants to see it. I'll take a little break and I'll let you guys decide amongst yourselves if you want to see this one. But this is more of ad hoc, so we're just doing stuff one-off. But then, are we doing it one-off in a way where maybe we're doing something productive? And I'm gonna actually have a balance of this when we're talking about the one-offs and stuff. Sometimes you just want to fix stuff, but sometimes you have to build it back into a playbook, and there's reasons to do that, and there's reasons to understand that process. And maybe I've just fixed something in a system and it's never going to come up again, but maybe it's a stateless node, and now I got to take that block that I've made and put it into the pipeline, so when that server gets redeployed on Wednesday nights, maybe they get redeployed in their dev environment and they come up, they're going to have that same problem again. They're going to put in another trouble ticket. Or by far the most annoying, if you've ever done operations work, is when they reopen the old ticket. God, I hate that. Right? Like if you've ever done any operations work, they just send an email. They search through their emails. This is them searching through their emails. They find the old ticket that was closed. but it's the same problem. But you didn't fix it forever. You only fixed it for them that one time, and they just send an email on that ticket, and your OTRS or ServiceNow or whatever ticketing tools you use reopens the ticket, and then now you got to go deal with that. So. Partial server info like the ad hoc man. Nice. I might have missed that earlier, Hokage. But here's what we're gonna do: take a break, walk around a little bit, stretch your back out if you want. Let me throw this here. Turn off camera for a second, and we'll say that take a quick break, and then we'll do more. So break, and then more Linux. More automation. We'll go 10 minutes. Do a 10-minute break. You guys can work on stuff, find out what's interesting to you. Let me know if you have questions. I'll be back. All right. Big part of this. All right, we're still on break here, but big part of this is going to be I fucking swear, man. This fucking tool. All the places they can put. Anyways, all right. We'll put Git operations in there because we're going to use Git throughout the course. A couple reasons. I think people prefer turning stuff in through Git. People that have finished the course and done that kind of stuff, I think they prefer using Git to turn stuff in. And also, I think that if you're not using Git in technology in general, I think that you're, the years of us, when I started out doing Linux servers, they just left us in a basement. As long as the Linux servers worked, they didn't care what we were doing. That's all that's really the way it started for me. As long as the servers worked, as long as they were deployed and the software guys were building software on them and the servers were being not even updated often. I mean, we just had to keep them secure to whatever standards we had, which weren't even well-defined standards, if you ask me, at the time. As long as shit worked, like, they didn't really bug us. But now, like, you have to do everything. We don't work in a vacuum anymore, right? That's a big part of, like, what I try to show you guys in the admin course and the security engineering course. You have to interact with either the contracts that you're on and the people that you're supporting that way, or if you're part of an employee on a team, what your team requirements are. You're working on something bigger than. I always say it like this: like, engineers don't get to just do the cool stuff. I don't just get to turn servers on and, like, see how fast they can go. Like, that's not something I get to do. I get to do that sometimes, but that's not a big part of what I do. I do slow, boring builds of servers, and I make them all look the same way, and none of them have cool paint on the side of them, and none of them have. There's no differences to them. None are faster or slower than the others. In fact, the more that I can make them exactly the same, the better I am at my job. And that's it's actually one thing that I've been kind of good at in my career over the years, is just building the same exact freaking server over and over again the same way. So where I'm going with that is, like a lot of this automation stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum anymore. We have to interact with the business now, and a big part of that is using Git and then working in teams on Git. So we'll be using Git. All right. So, because we're going to be using Git, I might have to do some Git, either creation of Git interactions, especially with Ansible. We do a little bit of Git stuff down here in the enterprise playground and enterprise patching, but we'll probably do some more remedial Git first. So I've got that added in here now. So Git operations we'll do, and we'll talk about. Yeah. But I think this is getting etched out better. I'm getting more of this stuff put in there. All right. I didn't see anybody SOC, yeah. Hokage, you said not trying to steer away from the course topic, just trying to make sense of what I'm learning on HLS. Yeah. Oh, there's our breaks up. Yeah, no, that's good. I think that, let me pull myself back up on stream here. There we are, I'm back. No, that's fine. I mean, whatever you guys want to work on is good too. I'm interested in technology stuff in general. We'll put this as one of the courses. I'll do this one real quick too. But we'll say that this is kind of with the ad hoc stuff, although we do need more. It won't just be this one, as far as that goes. But let's go look at this one. So this is ad hoc mode. So we're doing one-offs. We're not quite into playbook mode yet. Your team's decided they need a tool that they can use to control and operate the many servers you have in your environment. We've talked about this. We're doing Ansible, right? That's our tool. So we know we're using Ansible. You've decided to practice more with ad hoc or more of the ad hoc mode and deploy a configuration file that you need in an environment. Now, this is not the way that we would actually do it, but maybe if you were just testing, again, we're learning how to do things as a one-off. Maybe again, let's say you get called, you just did a deploy for a dev team, and they call you up and they go, hey, we had a problem. We have this one file out of place, and the file changed this and this and this, some config, and but the install takes an hour, so let's not do a full destroy and redeploy with it fixed. We've already fixed it in that file, and we'll get to it when we do the rebuild tonight. Maybe rebuild the environment every night. Can you just push that file real quick for us, and then we'll reset our servers? And you say, yeah, I can do that. So and this is what I tell you guys, like, one-offs aren't bad. Like, one-offs are about, like, quick response is like the purpose of agile methodology. You have to be able to work with people, especially in operations context. Do I need to then validate that deploy is still going to work with the new stuff, and that it's going to come up clean for them? Yes. Maybe I'll, even at the end of the day, find some time where, especially if it's in a dev environment, they'll say, hey, let me take one of the servers and let's rebuild it and make sure it goes through the whole process clean. Sure. That may be something too, but can you rapidly change things and get them working with the plan of building stuff back into your pipeline later? That is a valid thing. We do not do that shit in prod. You don't do that in prod. Prod has rigid rules for a reason. Things have to come through, but nobody would have been changing stuff like that by prod. We would have found that during the downtime. We would have fixed it and redeployed through the whole process, and that would have been a different thing. We shouldn't have even been there, because we should have found that, in all of our prior testing, but let's, neither here nor there. We're in a dev environment, so we expect changes. That's one of the things too, like, you don't get mad when there's shit broken in dev. Stuff breaks in dev. That's the point of development. We're developing stuff. I tell guys all the time, if this stuff just worked out of the box, the salesperson would set it up. They wouldn't need us engineers. The salesperson would set it up. They'd walk out the door, shake the person's hand, everything would just fall out of the box and work, and they wouldn't need us at all. Wouldn't need me to rack it, stack it, plug cables into it, make sure everything's taut. They wouldn't need me for any of that stuff. That stuff would all just work. But they do need us for that. They do need engineers for that. So my point is, dev environments exist to break, so you can't be mad about it. But sometimes you want to rapidly get the people back working, right? You got to snap your fingers and stuff. So this is just an environment. This is just us messing around in an environment and pushing some files around. You've got some host file. Maybe I ls in here. And I've got this config file, which just has some variables in it that are defined. That's maybe the config file that our system wants to slurp in, whatever that tool is. Maybe it's Datadog or New Relic or Node Exporter with a special config, or Promtail or Alloy, or I don't know. I don't know or care what we're pushing that config file for, but we've got to customize it as we move it, right? There's a decision here. Do I modify the file on the fly like I'm about to do, or do I do a Jinja template? And there's templating, and there's reasons why you might want to do stuff quick, like you're only changing one config. Or there's templating, which is much, much more accurate and rigid later, and we'll get into templating and some of the other stuff. In fact, do I have a specific thing on templating? I don't have a specific thing on templating, but it's going to come up throughout all of this. Templating is huge, because it's how we input stuff into the system correctly in exactly the same way, especially when we're dealing with strings and those kind of things. And also, it's very important about how we report things out of the environment as well. So anyway, so let's go look at it real quick. This isn't super complex. We look at root host and config file, so we got those. And then we just go copy that file over. And the command is super simple. We'll look at it here in a second. What happened? Ansible servers, we called it ad hoc, so we went against the host group servers inside of the inventory root hosts. There's our inventory, specifically called. Again, I'm a big fan of that locally, so that it's not some bullshit inventory that just hits everything, because I've seen that happen. I've seen stuff happen where we would have been on the news if the server hadn't crashed, right? Like, people did stuff that they shouldn't have against the entire environment because they didn't understand the difference between these names here and the word all. And that'll get you. All right, anyways, what happened? We used the copy module. The copy module has a few things that are required. Here are the arguments or options for it. I tend to think of them as arguments. Source is equal to some file. That's our local source over here. And destination is where it's going to go. So it's going to go to opt deployment, right? That's where this config file is going to get dropped. And let's see, I didn't make a directory. So yeah, that's what it's going to get copied over to. It's going to just be opt deployment. We see it copy on both of the nodes. We see that it's changed because something did have to change in the environment. And it says that we checksum the file. That's an MD5 sum. And, oh, sorry, this is the MD5 sum. This is still a SHA-1 sum. But I want to check that because I want to make sure they didn't update the type of sum. So we'll check that in a second. There's our MD5 sum right there. Here's the mode. We didn't give a mode or an owner or a group owner. We didn't give any of those options that we could have. But here they are. And then there's its size. And here's the source from where it got copied and then moved over. It's a file, so it's not a directory, right? It's its own file. And then the same thing happened down here. Now, this is, I'm going to rerun this, and you're going to see a totally different output. Totally different output. MD5 sum is gone. Now it's just that checksum, and everything's green instead of yellow or whatever color this is, right? One says changed and one says success, which is the same as okay, meaning nothing changed. But what does that mean? That means the file was already there and Ansible didn't have to do anything, right? And this starts to get into that idea of what we call idempotency. Later on, when we get into like handlers and stuff, these would have triggered the handler if there had been any notify, if anything was being notified, and then they would have triggered the handler to occur. The handler is like a trap card. It only happens if something if some condition is met. I don't know. I never watched that show. I've just seen memes of like the trap card, right? But I understand trigger conditions, and in here, nothing would trigger. So whatever that thing was, maybe it was restarting a service or something, it wouldn't happen down here because the file's already there. But let's go check this file real quick because I'm kind of curious, right? So it's ls, and let's do a ck sum, actually MD5 sum on config file, and it's 359651. 359651, so there's the MD5. Probably not a collision past that, so good. And then I'm kind of curious, is this a SHA? It used to be a SHA 256. It used to be SHA-1 sum, by the way. And it still is a SHA-1 sum. I'm surprised that in modern Linux that's still the way, because SHA-1 was deprecated 2 years ago by NIST. We don't use it for actual hashes with collisions, and in this case we're just weighing a file, so it doesn't really matter that they're still using SHA-1. I'm just surprised they didn't get off of it. Why would you use SHA-1 instead of like a longer SHA? Because the longer the hash and the longer the output, the more computation time you need. So when you're doing this against 1 or 2 servers, doesn't matter. But when you're doing it against thousands of servers and tens of thousands of servers, the weight starts to matter. In fact, you can turn some checking off if you really want to. But by default, that module is going to do that. So we check that. And then now that we've got that file out there, let's go push over a config fix. So we're going to go do line and file. Oh, there's some oh, wait, is there? I did not create the directory, guys. Watch, and then now this is going to break because watch. There's always already a file there. All right, let's remove the file. So Ansible servers. -m shell -a and then rm-rf on opt deployment. I thought that was weird. I was like, why am I putting it there? Whoops, servers. Oh, I gotta give the -i root host. Gotta give the explicit path, right? Anyway, so that'll remove it. But yeah, that was my bad. We needed to make that a deployment directory. I don't know why I didn't make that a directory first like I was supposed to. I didn't do the first one. So that'll make the directory, and then now the file will be put in the directory. I was wondering why that was in the wrong spot. Now it's going to be dropped down in there, properly opt deployment config, and then we can go modify that file, and that file is going to get this line replaced. But then if we do it again, the line doesn't need to be replaced the second time. Watch, because it's already there. So, all right. Then we come over here, and we can go and we can look and see that modified the file. Clap said, I'm having a problem with sudo. I've done everything I could. I tried formatting, used wheel, modified several users, formatted through one ISOs, and then sudo doesn't work for me. It simply ignores my user, never shows up who I am on Arch. All right, so I don't know everything on Arch, but I can tell you this. If you're on a box, right, you should be able to do this. Sudo -L -U your username. So let's say, I think I have a user Scott on here. Let's just say, let's user add Scott, right? So we'll just make a user Scott, doesn't matter. And Scott is not allowed to run sudo. But if I vi etc sudoers and I come down here and I go to root right here, or wheel. I can add my user to wheel if I want, right? Well, I'm showing you how we test it. I'm going to add my user to wheel. So user add, or I could do, we could do this a few ways. Let's just vi etc group. This is the way I like doing stuff. Let's say wheel, right? And at the end of wheel, I can just add Scott. And then I just go here, and now Scott has all the permissions of wheel. So one of your best friends, so I tell you guys all the time, when you're running stuff and testing stuff and doing stuff, you want to quickly, like rapidly get feedback. So I didn't, it says there's a problem with password authentication. So collapse, this is the main thing. I mean, check all these other things for sure, but this is the main way that I get rapid feedback on my system, because this parses the sudo file for the user. So sudo -L -U -U and then Scott. That's one of my favorites, right? But then there's all kinds of other things we can do, right? And there's, I mean, sudo sshd. So this is probably what sending is talking about. I don't know Arch at all. Never run Arch. Nobody runs it professionally. But down here, I should be able to go to what is the value? Sudo. Not sudo. PAM. So here's your PAM settings, and use PAM is set. This says by default to no. So set this to yes to enable PAM authentication. So maybe the default here, so this says right here, maybe something you set or something you've assumed that you had already done some other thing. And this is guys, this is one of the hard things about docs or reading anything online and digging through wikis. Sometimes people do something and it works fine for them and they continue on with their day and their blog post is set. But they're assuming that you've done these other things that aren't necessarily part of whatever's happening. So yeah, this says here, set this yes to enable PAM authentication, and then possibly that's something that's going there as well. All right, so something for you guys to play with. I mean, that's hopefully that gets you there, or whatever sending was talking about. Hopefully you can find, there you go. So there's a problem with, yeah. All right, on this system, this one's done. So we'll call that good. But all we were doing, when you look at this at the end of the day, is you're deploying. Don't worry about that stuff. You're deploying a. Well, first you made a directory. So we made a file that was a state directory, and we put opt deployment in there. Then down in opt deployment, we pushed over this config file that we needed for whatever reason, and then we modified the config file in some way instead of just stamping it as a template, which we can do later. And then we checked to see that it had already changed, so it didn't have to change again. That's it. So. All right. So, that lab has been added to this thing. We got to do some API stuff. So let me go see what my API lab here looks like. I don't remember what my API lab here makes you do. So this is the API lab. If anybody wants to hit an API with Ansible. And, oh, that reminds me, I got another lab I got to fix in this environment too, because we've got another lab before hitting APIs that I think would be useful for people to try and mess with. Yeah, let's see if swappy dev still works. Let's see. No, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not gonna list. Well, let's see if Ansible can get there. Cat root host, good. Cat root API. It's gonna go against localhost, which means it's just gonna run on this system, right? It's gonna gather facts true, but that doesn't matter. And then it's gonna go do the URI module and hit this swappy dev API people and return content. It's gonna register a variable and debug the variable. That's all we really want to see, right? Does it work? And this is our playbook, so we're running a playbook here. I'm curious if this certificates expired. Oh, that's probably part of the, well. So let's go look real quick. Certificate. Let's go look at some examples real quick of the URI module. Can we validate certs and set that to false? Would that help us with this? That may be something we need to do. Let's try real quick. Before I leave, let's go look. Validate underscore certs false, just for now. That's fine. Let's see. All right, do we still pull it? All right, we got it. So now we've got all this information, and this information's about whatever this swappy is. I need to go fix that, by the way. So let me go fix that real quick in our Ansible Labs. I thought I called that APIs and debug variables. Yeah, step 1. Text. It's actually an assets API YAML. Oh, I don't know if you guys just saw that, but my whole system just blacked out and said, "Do you want to allow Windows subsystem for Linux to do something in your environment?" And I'm like, I'm not doing anything with those assholes. What are you guys talking about? False, right? Do validate, certs false, and let's make sure that looks exactly like what it is over here. Validate underscore certs, validate underscore certs false, Control S, and we'll go push that back up to our right. Don't want that. All right. Then since that's pushed, I'm gonna go leave the lab real quick. Go back in. Get out of there. We got to go back. We're gonna let it run again. So it'll pull. Where's this at? Why is this not here? We'll go here. It should show me in the Het Labs that it just pulled today. Yep, that's today. It's late at night today, but it's right. Okay, Ansible Labs, and then we'll go back in there and make sure everything's what we want. Where's that API? Get this out of the way. If it's taken it, which it should have. Sometimes the environment takes a minute to build. We should be able to. There it is. Validate certs false. You guys see that? So then we can cat root host. So we see that, and then we're going to run it here in a second. We were just talking yesterday about computers being confidently wrong about things. How confidently wrong sometimes these systems are, and I think that's kind of funny. I know King Buns was talking about that a lot. These systems will just absolutely confidently give you the wrong answer to something, even if you confront them with it. And I'm like, that's wild. All right. So anyway, so we got this thing, and let's say I know nothing about this, and I know nothing about what's going on right here. I got a big mess of information back. So I got this variable called swappy, and then dot. I can get the allow to read the head options of what's going on in there. I can go look at the content that came back. But then down here, I can see that there is, under swappy.json, there's a count. So swappy.json.count, I can get the full number of these things. And then I can get the next, so if I wanted to read another block of these in, because I only have the first 10 right here, right? This is only responded with the first 10. And whatever these things are down in then JSON results. And the first one is this guy named Luke. Where is he at? His name's Luke. Last name Skywalker. I'm not familiar with that name. And then where is his homeworld? And where and what films is he in according to this? So this is apparently some list of movies or something. He's got an eye color of blue, and here's the information about him. Looks like he's a human. No, it doesn't even say what species he is, right? And then vehicles that he's been in and starships that he's been in, whatever that means. And then now this next character is yellow, and his name is a series of letters of some kind, C3PO. And then he's gold, right? I just can't see who I can get triggered. Anyway, so, but the point is I can start to read these, right? I can start to see what's going on. And I'm very surprised that that's the whole lab because, yeah, there's this other part to it. So we can go modify that. Let's go modify that. Root YAML. And let's go look for just this one part. So now we want just this one part. And then in this one thing, yeah, eye twitches, yeah. And now down here, look at this output. This output is, I'm looking at the swappy.json.results, which the reason I showed you when we were talking through those, the reason I said it like that is because this is how we look at JSON. JSON is like this, it's almost like if you were like passing your hand over like a, have you guys ever seen a topological map like this? It'd almost be like if you were like passing your hand over the map and then you felt something and you went, ooh, and you like dug in and you looked at just that one part of the map. That's kind of how JSON is, right? Like it's this output, and right here we've got the name of the registered variable from our API call is right here, swappy. Swappy holds everything. Swappy is like this high-level hanging thing with all the other branches off of it. You can go down to swappy.allow and you would get these values. Maybe those are useful to you because you want to see, maybe you're scanning all your known subdomains of a company and you just want to get down what kind of header information you're getting back from them. What are you allowed to do? These are your allow options, right? Get head, God, I'm gonna get kicked off of Twitch. Get head options. There's put. There's all kinds of other things. Good gosh. Anyways, you come down here. Ignore me. Swappy.json will bring us here, and .count would bring us right here. It would be like I zoomed in on the map to that one place. Like you guys have all played with Google Maps, right? And you like zoom in directly to your house or whatever. But that's kind of what's happening here, right? You zoom into the exact thing. And the way you zoom into the exact thing is you follow the path to it. So swappy.json.results 0 will find me the 0th. It's not a real world, but it's the first result, right? So you count at 0, right? We start it as 0 for our counting. But here is swappy.json.results 0. So I could watch this. I can go back in here and I could debug, and the vars could be right here, and I could copy this. There's many ways to do this, but I can say y3y, come down here, hit P, and now I can say debug full count to full count. Let's just say I wanted to debug the count. Well, what was the count? It was swappy.json.count, right? Go run it again. Now, I also have the data there raw, but if I want to see it come through the pipeline, there's my swappy JSON count. There's 82 characters in this. This has not been updated in a long time. The swappy, I remember swappy from, when did I start showing this to students? Maybe, probably doing some API stuff in the early 2010s, right? And that's kind of where, because I've found, and we've talked about this, I know Sending talked about this in different organizations around the world, they will have like what they call an API first strategy in their IT department. Some companies do it company wide, and when you go to build something, you have to provide an API for people to check it for status. Is it up or down? Is the service up or down? And they need to be able to check that. And you say, well, should they be tracking me? I don't know, but they need to be able to query that before they go to your team. By the way, you're going to be so happy that you do that. Once you set up like an API for people to check like if things are up or down, and they don't have to bug you anymore, it's teaching somebody how to fish as opposed to like having to make them like fish sandwiches every day or something. Like they'll go learn how to fish, and then at least, well, I guess if you're cooking for them, at least they're bringing the fish at that point, right? But the point is, you don't have to just answer one-off questions anymore. All your answers are already posted. It's like people that write frequently asked questions. Frequently asked questions save you a lot of trouble if people come in, just asking questions, about stuff. So anyway, so this is a thing, and I'm gonna say add that to this lab maybe. And this lab is probably gonna be down here. Again, just absolutely maddening. Wherever I want to put my fucking hand. All right. There we go. And then when I zoom in, it'll be good. All right, that's good enough. Good enough for government work, right? Although this isn't government work, this is our stuff. This is for the professional Linux users group. So we try to make it as good as possible. Now you guys will notice I'm just putting labs and stuff in there now. I'm gonna have to start etching out the discussions and the topics and my presentations and all that stuff. I'm gonna try to be a little more ahead than I've been in other courses. Normally I'm only like 1 or 2, well, like 1 week ahead. But I want to have it all etched out early so that I can then, just kind of like run through it as we go and make it as valuable to the guys on the Discord as we can. To that note, I haven't mentioned it in a while. We do have a Discord. The Discord's free. I think Nightbot's been mentioning it, but we got 40. Are we at 4,200 yet? We're pretty close to 4,200 people in there, but I'd say there's probably about, I don't know, maybe 500 somewhat active, but I don't know. I see the numbers, but I don't really pay too close attention. I do want that 4,200 to get bigger, though. So people who are at least interested in doing Linux professionally, getting into doing this as a career. We are looking at one subset of doing Linux, doing all the Linux. This is the automation portion. We're looking right now specifically at a tool called Ansible, which is going to be 70-75% of the course, but I'm also going to have a lot of Bash in there, and as much Python as I can get guys to help me fit it in. I can do Python enough, like I have Python scripts and stuff, but I don't do it professionally. I'd like some of the professionals that I know to work in there with me a little bit, the things that we kind of need to know. But for sure the first week's going to be packed, man. I mean, that's going to be a lot of work, because it's like I need to get people touching their tools. I need them to validate that everything's working, that they can get into labs. Unit 1's going to be a lot. And then the way these courses always go is we'll have, let's see how many people we got signed up now. And we're still a month out, and I just made it the other day, but we'll have over 100 people that want to come. But then once people, we're at 8 now, but we'll get bigger. As people see how much work it actually is, we tend to drop off quickly. And of those 100, I'd say maybe like between 8 and 10 typically finish. We also have the security engineering course going that same time. Well, it'll be earlier in the day when we run that, but that one's a doozy, right? That one's a lot of work as well. Getting into tools that some of you might not have worked with before for security. So, but I do that because I want you guys to, have a place to come in and work on this stuff that's like safe, and I don't mean that safe in like some weird political way. I mean that like safe, like you could break shit and who cares? Like break the environment. Don't break it maliciously, but break it in your testing and get it back working, and then prove that you know, you can deploy this stuff in a secure way or whatever. So, all right, I was hoping to do another hour, but I'm kind of beat, so I'll probably call it here. I appreciate you guys coming. Again, let me give you guys the Discord so you have it. Here is, because somebody will see it later and be like, oh, there's the Discord link, right? And I'll drop it over on the YouTube side. But again, you guys can hang out, do all these different things. We have, the courses are free. If you go in the Discord, right, and you're like, where do I go? There's too many things. You go right here to, well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Beginner start here. And this will at least give you a place to start. It's like a base of, here's some certs you can go get that are all free. Start bolstering your resume. Here's our courses. They're all recorded. Here's the YouTube playlist. And there's also the 2 course books, which, guys, you could go and you can get these course books. You can print them into a PDF, and then you can run away like a cartoon villain. And we're not gonna chase you down. We don't care. Anderson, he said Ansible's exhausting. Yeah, Ansible's it's a lot of work, but once you get it working for you the way that you want, and once you find like a little group that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and practice and test with, I really do think it's a tool that'll expand a lot of you guys that are trying to get into the career field. I think you'll find that this is, but again, this is a subset of it, right? Like automation is a subset of it. You got to be able to do the operations work and setting things up and fixing things and troubleshooting things and like networking, and you have to know these other things. But as you start to like productionalize your fixes and make things better, and you're looking to like optimize an environment and really start to, I don't want to say like stand out, but like you're trying to do good work because your name's the one attached to it. I really think automation's the way a lot of you guys will go in your career. So, all right, I'm going to call it there. I'm going to go back to playing video games and hanging out, but we will be in the Discord in a few hours. Actually, we'll be down in the Discord doing the maintenance for this weekend. I don't even know what we're doing for maintenance yet, but we'll get it going. So, all right, guys, take care. I will see you. And we're not going to raid anybody, but we'll get around to it. I'll be back on later